Today we're going to talk about the equations for a circle. So the standard form for the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. The center of the circle is h comma k, and the radius is equal to the square root of r squared. So remember that h and k moves our variable. Since h is with x, h moves our variable, or sorry, moves our circle left and right. And k moves our circle up or down. So let's practice. Write the equation of a circle in standard form with a given center and radius. So the center is 0, 0, so that's our h and k, and the radius is 5. So if it helps to write down the equation, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we're just plugging 0 in for h and for k. So of course, if you plug in 0, you would get x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to 5 squared. So this gives us x squared plus y squared equals 25. So this would be the equation of my circle with a center at 0, 0 and radius of 5. So let's go ahead and look at the question underneath of it, question 3. So let's do the same thing. So for this one, again, you have your h and your k. So this would be x minus 0 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared equals 2 root 5 quantity squared. So x minus 0 is just 0, so this is x squared plus, if you have a minus minus, it becomes positive, so y plus 2 squared is equal to, so here you're squaring, I'm going to write the work over here, so you would have 2 root 5 squared. Remember, that just means 2 root 5 times 2 root 5, so 2 squared is 4, and root 5 squared would be this times the square root of 5 times 5, which is just 5. So this would give us 20. So that would be my equation for my circle. So you guys do 2 and 4. On your own, and then of course you can check your work with the note key online. For question number 5, it says use the graph to write the equation of the circle in standard form. So to write the circle in standard form, remember that means we need to figure out, well, what's the center and what is the radius. So that's the first thing we're going to look for, is the center. So to find the center, it helps to look at the diameter. So if I look at the furthest top and bottom, I can count for the diameter. So if I count all of those, I have 7 and 7, which is 14. So the diameter is equal to 14. I could also count for the furthest left and the furthest right positions, which is also 14. So it doesn't matter which ones you choose. So with the diameter, then we can figure out what the radius is, because the radius is half the diameter, which is 7. So if we count 7 from the furthest bottom, left or right, we would see that the center, of course, is at 0, 0. So now I can write the equation. So again, remember, it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So in this case, we would get x squared plus y squared is equal to 7 squared, which is 49. So then let's go ahead and look at the next one. So for the next one, we can, again, this one looks like it has the dot there, so it's easy to see, but let's say that dot wasn't there. So if we look from this point to this point, we can find the diameter and count. So the diameter would be 1, 2, 3, 4, so 5, so 8. And then that means the radius is 4, and you can then count 1, 2, 3, 4 to check to make sure, yes, that is the center. So our center of our circle is at 4, negative 2. And now I can plug that in to our equation of a circle. So x minus 4 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared equals 4 squared. So we get x minus 4 squared plus y plus 2 squared is equal to 16. So you guys do this one. All right, so question 8, 10, and 11 says find the center and radius of the circle given its standard form equation. So for this, you're just finding the center. So if we know the equation, this gives us our h and our k. So that means that the center would be 2 comma 5, because remember it's always minus in the formula, and the radius, because we know this is r squared, so r squared equals 9, so r is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9, but we don't need the minus because we can't have a negative distance, so we're just going to use the plus, so r is equal to 3. So then if we look at the same thing for number 10, so why don't you guys do this one and do this one. And then again, you can check your answers using the notes key. The next one says graph the circle using the equation in standard form. So for this one, let's go ahead and look at number 13. So for this one, the first thing you want to do is find the center. So the center is, again, h and k. So this would be 2 comma 1. And then the radius is going to be equal to the square roots, because remember r squared equals 16, because that's this value here. So the square root of 16 is 4. So r is equal to 4, which of course then means the diameter would be 4 times 2, which would be 8. So our center is at 2, 1, which would be right here. And then I'm just going to count up 4 from the center, down 4 from the center, right 4, and left 4. And then draw your circle as best as you can. I know that this is the hard part, so we know it's not going to be exactly perfect, but as good as you can get your circle. So that would be our circle drawn. So you guys do 12 and 14. All right, so the next part says determine if a point is on, inside, or outside the circle. All right, so we have the equation and we're given the points 8 and negative 2. So we're plugging this in for x and y because remember h and k is for the center. So when I plug these values in, I get 8 minus 6 quantity squared plus negative 2 plus 4 quantity squared equals 8. So 8 minus 6 is 2, so we get 2 squared plus negative 2 plus 4 is 2 squared equals 8. So 2 squared would be 4, so 4 plus 4 equals 8. So we get 8 equals 8. So you're comparing the left and the right side. So when you get the answer and they're equal to each other, the point is on the circle. Because that means that that is equal to the radius. So that's why it's on the circle. So let's look at the next one. So we get x is 0 and y is 5. So if we plug 0 in, we would get 0 minus 7 squared plus y, which is 5 minus 3 squared equals 36. So this gives us negative 7 squared, which is 49, plus 5 minus 3 is 2 squared, which gives us 4 equals 36. And so in this case, we get 53 equals 36. Well, obviously 53 is not equal to 36. We know 53 is greater than 36. So if it's greater than the radius, then we know the point is outside the circle. So the point for this one is outside the circle. So again, you're just always comparing the point that you're plugging in to the radius. So if it's equal on the circle, greater than outside the circle, and if the point side was less than the radius, then it would be inside the circle. All right, so the next part says, given the center and a point on the circle, find the length of the radius and write the equation of the circle in standard form. So for this one, we have the center is 0, 0, that's your h and your k, and the point on the circle is x and y. So this is x and y. So we're going to plug it into our equation. So remember, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we're plugging h and k in. So we would get x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals r squared. So this is really x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And we're going to also plug in the point. So x is 8 squared plus y, which is 6 squared, equals r squared. So when we solve, we get 64 plus 36 equals r squared. So that gives us, of course, 100. Taking the square root, so plus or minus the square root of 100 is 10, but again, we don't need the negative. We only want the positive square root. So that means that r is equal to 10. So when writing our equation, remember we use our h and our k, which is of course 0, and the r squared. So we have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 10 squared. Because remember, it's always your h and your k. So x squared plus y squared equals 100. So that would be the equation of our circle. And the length of the radius we already said was 10. So looking at the middle one, same thing. So see if you can pause the video and do this one on your own. When you're done, on pause to check your work. So this is h and k, and this is x and y. So we get x minus h squared plus y minus 10 squared equals r squared. So that is the general equation without the radius. Of course, we're going to find it using our points of x and y. So we would get negative 5, because that's x minus 3 squared, plus 8 minus 10 squared equals r squared. So to write the equation of the circle, we need to find r. So in this case, we get negative 5 minus 3, which is negative 8, and negative 8 squared, you're squaring the negative, so that gives us 64, plus 8 minus 10 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4, equals r squared. So this gives us 68 equals r squared. So if we want to find the radius, then we're going to take the square root of this. Again, you don't need the minus, so the square root of 68 equals r. So 68 is not a perfect square, so we're going to break this down to reduce our radical. So we get 4 and 17, and 4 breaks down in 2 and 2. So that means 2 would go on the outside and 17 would stay underneath the radical. So our radius is equal to 2 root 17. And the equation of the circle is x minus 3 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals, and we know that we found r squared was 68, so we don't really have to square this, but you can if you want. You should get 68. If you don't, then make sure to look at your work. So that would be the equation of our circle in standard form. So then the next problem, the only difference is I just didn't write it out. So they gave you the center is negative 2, negative 1, and the point on the graph that we have is 2, negative 4. So we're going to use those to help values to help us. So h and k, and this is x and y. So we get x minus -2 would be plus 2 squared, and then y minus -1 would be plus 1 squared equals r squared. I always like writing that part of the equation first so that I don't get all the numbers confused. So now I'm going to plug in our numbers for x and y. So now we have 2 plus 2 squared plus y, which is -4 plus 1 squared equals r squared. 2 plus 2, of course, is 4. So 4 squared gives us 16, and then -4 plus 1 is -3. -3 squared is 9 equals r squared. So that gives us 25 equals r squared. So that means, of course, our radius is equal to 5. And then for our equation, we get x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 25. So that would be our equation in standard form. And that is all for this lesson. So again, just make sure that you check your work on the notes for the answer key online for the problems that you were supposed to do on your own. And that's all for today.